There's a moment in every great story where the main character doesn't know what's coming next. Not because the plot has stopped moving, but because the next page hasn't been turned. The air feels still, the scenery hasn't shifted, but somewhere deep inside, in a place even logic can't touch, something is changing. That's the moment most people mislabel as being stuck. But in truth, that's the space between chapters. And if you're here right now watching this video, it might be because you're standing in that invisible gap between the life you know and the reality you can feel, but can't yet touch. The quantum field doesn't operate like a clock or a to-do list. It moves more like a symphony, not linear but layered, not mechanical but deeply intelligent. And right now, whether you realize it or not, that field is holding every version of you that could ever exist. The one who found the relationship, the one who built the business, the one who healed, the one who let go. They're all already there, not in some distant future, but in a frequency that's already vibrating now. And that brings us to a truth you were never taught in school. Manifestation isn't about creating something that doesn't exist. It's about aligning with something that already does. That shift in understanding is the axis on which your entire reality can turn. You've probably been told to focus on what you want, to set goals, visualize, affirm. And while those tools have their place, the truth is, they often keep you in a state of separation. Because when you're chasing a future, you're inherently stating, it's not here yet. And the quantum field doesn't hear your words. It responds to your state of being. Not what you say, not even what you do, but who you're being vibrationally, moment by moment. Let's pause here. If you're already resonating with this, it's not because I'm telling you something new. It's because I'm reminding you of what your nervous system already knows. You've had moments, haven't you, where you felt the truth of this? Moments when reality seemed to soften, when something aligned so perfectly it made you question if you were creating or remembering. That's because in those moments, you weren't trying. You weren't efforting. You were simply in tune, emotionally, mentally, and energetically, with a timeline already alive in the field. And yet, most of us are trained to interrupt that harmony. We say we want ease, but we live in the vibration of resistance. We crave alignment, but we operate from doubt. And the most dangerous belief we carry is this: it's not happening yet, so maybe it's not meant for me. That belief doesn't just delay manifestation, it collapses the frequency entirely. Because here's how the quantum works. What you feel is true now becomes the blueprint for what you experience next. Not because the universe is testing you, but because your reality is built by resonance, not requests. Imagine this. You're tuning a radio. You want to hear your favorite song, but instead of turning the dial, you scream at the static, play the song. It doesn't work. Not because the song isn't playing somewhere, but because you're not tuned in. Now apply that to your desires. The life you want is already playing. It's not your job to beg for it. It's your job to match its frequency. But that takes more than just thinking positive thoughts or scripting affirmations. It requires an internal collapse of the old self, the one who believed they had to earn it, prove it, or chase it. It means stepping out of the loop of lack and into the vibration of already having. Here's what no one tells you. The field doesn't mirror what you want. It mirrors what you are. So if you say, I want abundance but feel scarcity, the field mirrors scarcity. If you say, I'm ready for love but hold resentment, the field reflects resistance. But if you say nothing and simply embody the version of you who already lives it, then the field has no choice but to respond accordingly. Because to the field, you are the signal. And once that signal stabilizes, the quantum collapses, not randomly, but mathematically, into the version of reality that matches you. And that's why this moment matters more than you know. Not because you need to do more, but because the field is already listening. And the question it's asking isn't, what do you want? It's, who are you being? Let's go deeper. Because it's not enough to understand that the quantum field mirrors your frequency. You must begin to recognize what frequency you're actually broadcasting not what you intend to broadcast. And that starts with awareness. Radical, uncomfortable, liberating awareness. Not of what's missing from your life, but of what you're unconsciously rehearsing in your energy every single day. What do you wake up rehearsing? The lack? The delay? The story of still not there yet? Or the version of you who walks as if the desire is fulfilled, even if the 3D world hasn't caught up yet? This is where most people struggle. They mix frequencies. They say all the right things, visualize, journal, meditate, but then spend the rest of their day thinking, feeling, and acting like the version of them who doesn't have it yet. And that confusion creates interference. The quantum field doesn't know what to respond to, so it holds, waits, echoes back static. Here's a truth that might sting, but will set you free. The field isn't late. You're just tuned to a version of reality that cannot contain what you've asked for. And tuning happens not through force, but through identity. When you broadcast as the version of you who is still doubting, checking, waiting, comparing, you remain in the loop of what's already manifested. But when you shift into embodiment, everything starts to rearrange. That's why spiritual teachings across traditions all circle back to one core principle: be it now. Not fake it, not force it, but feel it real. And from that state, take aligned action. Quantum jumping at its core isn't a mystical escape. It's an act of emotional coherence. It's becoming so vibrationally stable in a new version of yourself that the field must obey, because it can't not. The wave collapses according to the observer. And if your observation is no longer contaminated by doubt, resistance, or contradiction, the shift becomes not just possible, but inevitable. Let me ask you something. Who would you be if you were no longer looking for signs? How would you move if the desire was already your memory? What decisions would you make if there was nothing left to prove? These aren't rhetorical questions. These are quantum tuning forks. Because in asking them, you access a new frequency, one where you stop seeking validation and start living as a transmitter of the outcome you once chased. And that's where magic begins. Not because the universe rewards you, but because you've stopped rewarding your old identity with attention. And here's the beautiful paradox. The moment you no longer need proof, it appears. Why? Because your signal is clean. Your field is uninterrupted. You're no longer sending out, "I want this, but I don't believe it." You're simply existing in a state of "I am." And the quantum field, being both intelligent and neutral, mirrors that back without hesitation. You'll begin to notice it in strange, subtle ways. People treat you differently, though they don't know why. Opportunities arise that weren't visible before. You feel calm, even though nothing external has changed, because your internal landscape has shifted. And that internal shift is the manifestation. Everything that happens afterward is just the reflection, like light bouncing off a mirror. It's not where the light starts, it's where the light lands. And once you understand that, you stop chasing shadows. You stop asking yours, "When will it happen?" And you start declaring, "It's already chosen me." In the next part of this transmission, we'll explore why so many people feel empty or uncertain, even after doing all the right things, and how to know if the field has already started reorganizing in your favor. But for now, let this truth land deeply. What you want isn't somewhere out there. It's here, waiting for you to meet it at its own frequency. And the second you match it, it has no choice but to become your next now. There's a pattern that quietly runs most people's lives. It doesn't scream. It doesn't demand. It whispers. It shows up in hesitation, in second guessing, in moments where you almost say yes to something that feels expansive, but don't. It's the voice that says, "What if I'm wrong? What if I look foolish? What if nothing happens?" That voice isn't fear. It's the residue of an identity that hasn't yet caught up to your vision. Because here's what the self-help books don't always tell you. Your old self won't surrender easily. It was built to survive, not to thrive. It was sculpted by repetition, by environment, by emotional trauma, and inherited beliefs. And every time you start to vibrate at the level of your desires, that old self panics, because your frequency no longer matches the reality it knows how to control. And what does the ego do when it senses a death of control? It resists. It clings. It finds clever ways to bring you back to the familiar. It calls it logic. It disguises itself as caution. But what it's really doing is broadcasting confusion to the field. One foot on the accelerator, one on the brake. This is why you can do everything right. Visualize, affirm, meditate, and still feel stuck. Because while your actions are aligned with your desires, your energetic identity is still loyal to your past. And the quantum field, always precise, reflects not your efforts but your essence. Let's make this concrete. You say you want to be abundant, but you still make decisions from scarcity. You say you're ready for love, but you still fear being fully seen. You say you want freedom, but you still feel guilt when you rest. This is the mismatch. And it's not about blaming yourself. It's about seeing yourself fully, compassionately, clearly. Because once you see the contradiction, you can start to collapse it. The key is coherence. Emotional, mental, energetic coherence. When your thoughts, feelings, and actions vibrate in unison, not just once, but consistently, the quantum responds immediately. Not always with fireworks, but with shifts, real ones, subtle, powerful, irrevocable. You begin to notice changes in how you speak, in what you tolerate, in the way your body relaxes in rooms you used to shrink in the way people respond to you, not because they changed, but because your field did. And this isn't theoretical. Studies in quantum coherence, heart-brain synchronization, and frequency entrainment are showing that our internal state organizes external patterns. This is not magic, it's physics. A heart in a state of gratitude broadcasts a measurable field of coherence that affects matter. A brain trained into theta waves unlocks access to non-local intelligence. A body not dominated by survival stress becomes a vessel of transmission, not reaction. So ask yourself now, where am I still broadcasting contradiction? What version of me do I revert to when no one's watching? What belief am I still feeding with my attention, my habits, my doubt? Because the field doesn't just respond to your highs. It listens to your lows. It hears the parts of you you think are invisible. It reflects not what you say you want, but what you truly believe is safe to have. And for many people, this is the hardest truth. They don't actually feel safe having what they want. Not because they're weak, but because they've been programmed to survive in the absence of it. And having it would mean giving up the identity they used to protect themselves. So here's your invitation. Let yourself grieve that identity. Let yourself mourn the part of you that thought waiting was safer than receiving. And then, step. One energetic step at a time. Not into action, but into alignment. Because the moment you release the need to protect the old story, you free the field to collapse the new one. And that's where we go next. What happens right before the shift occurs, and why so many people misinterpret that moment as a breakdown, when it's actually the breakthrough. There's a moment in the process of quantum manifestation that almost no one talks about. It's not glamorous. It's not filled with signs and synchronicities. In fact, it often feels the opposite. Like everything is going backward. Like nothing is working. Like you're further from your desires than ever. And this is where most people quit. They call it failure. They call it misalignment. But it's not either. It's the collapse point. The exact moment where the old timeline is breaking down and the new one hasn't fully stabilized. You're not being punished. You're not doing it wrong. You're in the in-between, the quantum void. And in that void, it's common to feel untethered. You might experience confusion, exhaustion, even grief. Not because something bad is happening, but because your nervous system is letting go of a reality it once believed was necessary for survival. You're detaching from the gravitational pull of your old self, and like a spaceship exiting Earth's orbit, you need extra fuel to break free. Here's the paradox. The more aligned you become, the more your old identity fights for relevance. Why? Because the ego can't exist in uncertainty, and the quantum field, the space of all potential, is pure uncertainty. It's unformed, undefined, unlimited. To the part of you that needs control, that feels terrifying. But to the part of you that remembers, it's home. So how do you navigate this space? First, by understanding that this breakdown is not chaos, it's reorganization. Your energetic blueprint is being rewritten. Synapses are rerouting. Emotional set points are recalibrating. Your frequency is ascending. And with it, the patterns, people, and places that no longer resonate begin to fall away. Not because they're wrong, but because they're complete. This is when reality starts to test your coherence. Not with obstacles, but with echoes. Old triggers resurface. Familiar distractions reappear. And here's the catch. They feel familiar, safe, even comforting. But they're not invitations. They're invitations to choose again, to choose presence over pattern, stillness over reaction, faith over force. And this choice isn't made once. It's made again and again, in silence, in discomfort, in solitude. You're not being asked to be perfect. You're being asked to be faithful to your new identity, even before the evidence arrives. Because the field doesn't shift when the desire is strong. It shifts when the identity is unwavering. And this brings us to one of the most powerful truths in manifestation. You don't receive your desire when you want it badly enough. You receive it when you no longer need it to define you, when you no longer use it as proof that you're enough, when you no longer seek it to validate your worth, when you simply become the version of you who would naturally live that reality. From that place, the quantum field isn't delivering something new. It's just reflecting what you've already claimed vibrationally. So what does this look like practically? It means sitting in the discomfort without making it mean failure. It means holding your frequency when the external doesn't match yet. It means trusting the collapse, because only when the old dissolves can the new emerge. And that's when the subtle shifts begin. You speak differently. You breathe deeper. You notice signs you once overlooked. You take aligned action without overthinking. You stop forcing, and things begin flowing. Not because the universe changed, but because you did. And here's a powerful practice for this stage. When the doubt comes, don't fight it. Witness it, bless it, and say out loud, "This is the part of me that's dying, so the real me can rise." Because when you name the echo, it loses its power. You're not collapsing, you're shedding, you're not lost, you're in transit. And this is the threshold of the quantum jump, where you no longer identify with the person who needed to attract the thing, but with the version who already lives it. Once that shift clicks into place, the field moves, reality bends, time rearranges. Comment below, "I am." Not just as a phrase, but as a frequency. That's your vibrational declaration that even inside the void you are no longer waiting. You are becoming. And the field is listening. By now you've probably noticed something strange happens once you cross the threshold of the collapse. A strange calmness starts to emerge. Not because your external world has caught up, but because your inner world no longer demands it to. This is coherence. This is stabilization. It's when your frequency stops seeking confirmation and starts radiating conviction. And when that happens, truly happens, the field begins to solidify a new version of reality around you, not as a reward, but as a mirror. But even here, in this sacred newness, many people falter. Not because they lack desire, but because they haven't yet learned how to sustain the frequency they've touched. And that's the difference between momentary shift and lasting transformation. Sustaining a new frequency is not about perfection. It's about returning. Again and again. It's about developing what we might call energetic endurance. Think of it like tuning an instrument. If you tune your violin once, it may sound beautiful for a while. But with time, with pressure, with use, it drifts. The strings loosen, the tone wavers, and unless you retune, the sound loses its clarity. Your frequency is the same. You may reach a moment of peak alignment through meditation, gratitude, visioning, and feel on top of the world. But life continues. People test you. Emotions rise. Doubts whisper. And without conscious retuning, you drift back into familiar vibration. So how do we stay in tune? It starts with frequency hygiene. Just like you brush your teeth daily, you must care for your energy daily. This isn't about obsessing over vibration, but about staying in relationship with it. What are you consuming? What are you rehearsing internally? What are you tolerating that contradicts your chosen timeline? Your thoughts aren't neutral, they are instructions. Your focus isn't random, it is a signal to the field. Your self-talk isn't private, it's a broadcast. If your inner world doesn't reflect the reality you desire, you're not manifesting, you're memorizing the past. Here's where it gets truly quantum. The field doesn't just respond to energy. It responds to consistency of energy, to the vibrational signature that gets reinforced, layered, repeated. This is how timelines are stabilized, not by wishing harder, but by vibrating longer. Think about it. A weak radio signal comes and goes, but a strong, consistent frequency pierces through static. It penetrates the noise. It locks onto a station and doesn't let go. Your desires aren't looking for intensity. They're looking for coherence. Can you hold the signal? Can you keep the tone clear even when reality hasn't caught up? This is where many people give up, not because they failed, but because they stopped broadcasting. They looked around and saw no confirmation and assumed nothing was happening. But quantum manifestation is not like planting a seed and watching it grow in real time. It's like planting in a dimension where time behaves differently, where the harvest is already there, but your frequency must walk through the corridor of alignment to reach it. And that corridor is made of daily choices. You choose your station with every reaction, with every emotional response, with every word you speak, with every boundary you uphold, with every moment you decide to remember who you are, instead of who you used to be. And let's be clear, remembering your new self is not denial of the present. It's creation of the next present. That's how reality shifts, not by fixing the old scene, but by outgrowing it vibrationally. When you stay in frequency long enough, the old chapter simply stops being compatible. It fades not with drama, but with disinterest. It simply no longer feels true. You wake up one day and realize, the thing you used to beg for, you now expect. The version of you who used to chase, you now embody. The energy you used to reach for, you now radiate. And when that happens, the quantum field doesn't just respond, it realigns. The opportunities, people, timing, circumstances, they don't arrive by luck. They were always there. You simply tuned into the version of reality where they could exist. So if you're in that in-between space now, where the old world feels faded but the new one hasn't fully arrived, know this: you're not stuck. You're stabilizing. And the more you return to your chosen frequency, the faster the field locks in your new trajectory. It's not magic, it's physics. Consciousness collapses possibility, and coherence locks it in. In the next and final part of this journey, we'll explore what it truly means to live from the quantum, where you no longer need to manifest anything, because you have become the version of you who already has it. There comes a moment in every spiritual evolution when you stop chasing the outcome and start embodying the energy. You realize that what you once called manifestation was, in truth, a bridge to remembrance. You weren't attracting the thing. You were awakening to the version of you who already lived inside it. And this changes everything, because suddenly, your life stops being a problem to solve and becomes a frequency to express. This is the state of being that mystics, sages, and quantum scientists alike have been pointing to. In the words of Dr. Joe Dispenza, when you change your energy, you change your life. And when you live from that energy consistently, not conditionally, not occasionally, but as your new identity, you collapse the boundary between desire and reality. What you want isn't summoned, it's matched. What you long for isn't requested, it's remembered. And this is the final leap in quantum manifestation. You stop trying to manifest because you've become the living evidence of the field's response. Think about this. A magnet doesn't try to attract. It just is. A tuning fork doesn't beg to resonate. It just does. The sun doesn't explain its warmth. It simply radiates. When you live as the version of you who already has, already knows, already vibrates, you become a living coherence field. And the quantum responds, not because you're demanding it, but because you've aligned with it. This is why spiritual wisdom has always spoken of surrender, not as weakness, but as the doorway to power. Because in surrender, you release resistance. You relax your grip on how. You stop performing for the universe and start collaborating with it. You don't broadcast effort, you broadcast essence. And that signal is unmistakable. From this place, manifestation becomes less about asking and more about receiving. Less about proving and more about allowing. You don't hustle for worthiness. You rest in it. You don't monitor results. You trust momentum. You don't chase timing. You become timeless. And what's most beautiful, this isn't something reserved for monks or mystics. It's available to you, right now, in the ordinary sacred breath you're taking, in the choice you make to let go of needing and step into knowing. In the moment you stop defining yourself by your past and start creating from the field of infinite potential. But here's the truth. You'll forget. We all do. You'll have days where the old identity resurfaces, where doubt feels louder than destiny, where nothing seems to be shifting. And that's okay. Because forgetting doesn't erase the shift. It only invites you to remember again. And with each remembering, your signal gets stronger, your identity gets clearer, your alignment becomes magnetic. That's why we're here, not just to teach or speak or produce content, but to build a resonance field with you, a place where your frequency can stabilize, where your remembering is supported, where you're not just watching transformation, you're becoming it. And so, as we close this journey, take a breath and feel this truth. Everything you want already exists in the quantum field. It's not waiting to be created. It's waiting to be recognized, matched, lived. You are the bridge. You are the conduit. You are the field. Comment below, I am, if you're ready to collapse the illusion of distance and embody the version of you who already holds it all. That one phrase becomes your alignment anchor, your declaration to the universe, and your invitation to reality to meet you where you vibrate. And if something in you has stirred, opened, or aligned during this video, know this isn't the end. It's a recalibration, a continuation. And you're not meant to walk it alone. Subscribe, not just for more content, but to deepen your coherence with every story, every teaching, every transmission we share here. You've stepped into the field. Now let the field respond.